What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets. We're going to be talking through the Saturday NFL slate for Week 15. We did our video already for Week 15 for the main slate, but we thought we'd talk through this little two-gamer. Some pretty good tournaments out there to play, so I definitely think it's worth covering. Sheets, any sort of overall thoughts on this little two-game slate? I mean, you can talk if you want to. Jump on in for your Survivor. I'm guessing this day is not going to be all that important to it, but anything on Saturday that's going to happen for you?
You know, it's not, but it could have. It was close actually. So first of all, let's talk about this for a little bit. Before we get to Survivor, as we get down towards the end of the season, you get to these two-game slates, and it gives you a nice preparation for the playoffs, which ends up some four gamers, maybe one day of four gamers, maybe some two gamers or whatever. And you know, we talk about how to treat two-game slates. You know, they're not exactly full slates, but they're not exactly showdowns either. You know, so you don't really have to correlate all that much, but you know, and you can play some kind of off the board plays, but it's not like you have to play but they don't give you the opportunity to pay like 200 for people, you know. So it's somewhere in between. So I think that's something interesting. And with respect to the games, it's actually with Survivor this week. I haven't finalized my pick yet because all the COVID stuff is throwing some new wrinkles into it. I originally, just so you know, I'm planning on taking Arizona. You know, minus the, you know, they're like a 13-point favorite at Detroit. But you know, there was other options to consider, and one of them was Miami as an 11-point favorite over the Jets. But Miami was rated to be pretty high owned, which is why I was thinking of doing Arizona. And then there was another team, because I'd love to not have to play Arizona because I'd like to save them if possible. And Philly was a pretty viable option when they were a 7-point favorite over Washington. Although I might be able to use them later. But Taylor Heineke was just announced to have COVID. Kyle Allen is back up at COVID. They just had to sign Garrett Gilbert from the New England practice squad, maybe straight into a starting role, leaving Philadelphia probably a 13-point favorite, making them viable. I bring all this up because in the absence of that, actually Las Vegas was going to be maybe not the pick, but certainly an option if you wanted to stay away from Zona and save them. Because when Mullins was announced as the quarterback, Vegas originally was like a small underdog, and now Vegas now a 4.5 point favorite, and that doesn't seem like a lot for Survivor, but when you're looking for options that you have to use, Vegas certainly, it took up about 15-20 minutes of discussion between my partner last night. We ended up, we're not going to use them, but I don't think, but it definitely was a consideration. And you know, I guess that's where we should start. You know, as you go game by game, is that, you know, Cleveland, you know, they lost Mayfield this weekend, and also their backup they lost, Case Keenum. So now
they're with screen while we go through it.
Oh yeah, so now they're stuck with what's his name, with Nick Mullins as their quarterback. He's only 4K, and that's where I guess we have to start the slate. What do you think of this game, or do you want to attack the slate in general, or do you want to attack, you know, by position?
Yeah, we'll go by game, but I'll talk about sort of my overall thoughts here. Like,
sure,
you're going to get a bazillion% owned, both Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor especially. I think just trying to avoid at least one of those guys is the right thing to do. Probably Taylor, because he's going to maybe be 90% owned. And there's value out there. So playing Nick Mullins to me is something I'm not going to do. I'm going to try and look for ceilings at quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and pay up, even if it's overpaying. And then at running back, I'm going to try to play one of the Patriots running backs, depending on who that is. Josh Jacobs on the Vegas side, and then Naheem Hines I'm going to take some shots with for Indy, because I really want to try to avoid that massive chalk in bad matchups. I do think it's a good matchup for Chubb, but Taylor's a monster. He's probably going to put up in a bad matchup anyway, but I just feel like with Belichick on the other side, I like New England, by the way, to beat Indy. So I want to get that out of the way too. And I think I like Cleveland over Las Vegas, even with this situation. So I think both underdog sides I like. I'm going to try to play the passing game and overpay a receiver and not running back. But so, you know, going with this game, I do have some interest in Derek Carr because of that. I think that he he or Wentz. But if I'm not going to play Taylor, it might make some sense to play Wentz, although I don't really love Wentz. And Mac Jones is probably the guy I'll probably end up using the most. But I do think that Carr is right there with those guys for me. It's not like a big gap. You're going to have plenty of money if you're doing, especially what I'm doing. So Hunter Renfrow, even at high ownership, you could argue that maybe that's something we should do differently. But I don't know without leaving money on the board if I need to do that. So the receivers in this game are really weird because you have Renfrow and Donovan Peoples-Jones as the main guys. I think Rashad Higgins is probably the better cheap option, but I think I'm just going to stick with the Renfrow side of things. And then at tight end, I think playing the guy who no one's going to play this week is oddly Foster Moreau, who's the guy we always play on the huge slate. And I think that he's interesting because the other guys, both Cleveland tight ends, assuming they're healthy, will be popular. And I think that's very viable with Mullins or whoever ends up being the quarterback. But I am probably going to, I would consider some Moreau. I like Renfrow and I like Chubb are my main plays from this game. And I think obviously, like all defenses, both of these defenses are extremely viable.
Yeah, for me, I'm not going to have any part of the Cleveland passing game at all. I just don't need it. I don't think. They are going to try to jam Chubb to everybody's throat, and you'd like to think that Vegas realizes that. So I think it is going to come down to, by the way, whether Mullins can make some plays. Because they have to stack the box against Chubb. I mean, you'd have to imagine that's what they're going to do. So if there is and to take the same approach you did with these two running backs, with Taylor and whatever, you'd like to think that New England's going to do something similar, right? Try to stop Taylor, and so I'd love to try to fade them both, like you're saying. Like I like your idea of Josh. I like Josh Jacobs. The fact is, he's a 4.5 point favorite. And you like to play running backs as 4.5 point favorites. So I do like him, and not that he's going to be low owned, right? I still have him 60%, right?
Right.
But
right,
that's
right.
only two game slate. And then I agree with you. I would use one of the New England running backs as the second one. That would be that's what I'm going to try to do at least. And as far as receiving goes for the Vegas. Yeah, Foster Moreau is probably my favorite, and the second one would be Zay Jones. I'm pretty sure, by the way, that if you don't play Taylor, like you're going to leave money on the table. I think that's what's going to happen, which is fine, whatever. But it's so funny, like we're thinking like Jonathan Taylor. We just had this discussion about why you just can't really like fade Jokic, right? Because he's going to need those raw points. They're just going to just keep hammering him, I think. But we'll get to that game in a minute. But Vegas, Cleveland, yeah, I like Josh Jacobs. I think that's sharp. I like Foster Moreau. I like Zay Jones. And I don't know. I have to say that I have to like the Vegas defense, I suppose. I'm not that you are, but I just don't think Nick Mullins is going to be competitive. I just don't think he's any good at all. So that's what I'm going to try to fade Chubb. I'm going to play kind of almost like, Vegas blowout, I suppose. So maybe you have Carr with what's his name with Zay Jones or with Moreau, Josh Jacobs, maybe the defense, something like that. And that's kind of what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's going to be, they're definitely going to stack the box against Chubb. That's for sure. I think that I think Chubb is the harder one for me to fade, believe it or not, than Davis is. Than Taylor is, which sounds weird, but we also, we don't have the normal routine here of we don't have any Kareem Hunt here. We have a team that struggled against the run. What do they have? They got 4 touchdowns by the running backs last week against them. They have Vegas. So I do like the idea of trying to play the running backs in this game. I still am going to try and find some fade for Chubb, but it's a little bit harder for me with them than it is for Taylor. All right, let's talk about New England and Indy. What are your thoughts on the overall game?
Yeah, so here's some thoughts on the overall game. Now, this is really, really bad form and a really bad advice to give somebody, right? The last thing you want to do. So if there's someone like whose opinions have been so sharp and so on it. Like the last thing that you want to do is fade something like that because their eye is so tuned in on what's going on that you really want to fade that. But I have to say, I mean, we haven't put like our 50 cent or our dollar up there up in a long time. And I think that that you and I are gonna have a freaking fist. I think we're gonna have some dollar action in this game, okay? Because I think this may be a ridiculous. I think Indianapolis just destroys them in this game. I really like the Indianapolis side. I think that Indianapolis has been extremely good pretty much since the first two games. Like all of their losses have been to good teams, and they've had some really good wins. And I think New England's been, had a softer schedule. They've had some good circumstances. And I happen to think that Indianapolis is a very strong team. And I think Indianapolis just blasts them. It's like ridiculous to say against any Belichick team up 6 wins in a row. But that's just my take. So we're gonna go in for the dollar on this one, and we're gonna see who comes out of that on top. With respect to the actual fantasy thing, I like Taylor, but I don't know if you can play anybody at 90%, like on any slate.
Right.
I do like Wentz. I like Pittman. I like your Naheem Hines call. I think there's going to be more points in this game than the Las Vegas Cleveland game. Well, that's not particularly strong take, I guess. But the Indianapolis side. And on the New England side, I think that, you have to tell me who to play, but I do want to play one of these running backs. The guy that I would rather play is the Ramondre Stevenson. That's the guy I have showing up the most. And then the top wide receiver I have is Jacoby Myers. I don't really like playing Nelson Aguilar. The second one I would play would be Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, so that's, there's a lot of good stuff there that you touched on. I do think that, it's interesting because I think that people are really on this Indy wave. And I, at first I thought it was a 3.5 point spread, which seemed really crazy to me. It's 2.5 points, not as crazy. I would say if it was 3.5 points, and I know it sounds like a weird thing. Oh, what does it matter? Well, it's because you end up losing by a field goal. That's very possible. You know what I mean? Yeah. Much more likely than a 2-point difference.
Sure.
So I think the interesting thing about the Hines thing is, like, you could make a good argument for playing, if you're going to play Chubb and Taylor together, why not play Naheem Hines also? You could do something like that on this slate, and it would be really weird. Anytime you play Hines at all on the slate, it's going to be weird anyway. But I do think it's viable because he's better than, I think, is a better bet than some of the 4K receivers. I like Kendrick Bourne. I like all of the New England passing game. So I am the running game, to be honest with you. I still think that Indy's good. I think that they have some real monsters on defense, and they've got a monster offensive line. But I think that this Patriots team does too, and they're tough. I think that Brandon Bolden is another sneaky one that might get in there. It depends on game script. You know what I mean? With Hines, I'm playing that New England's playing from ahead, and right before the half, you're getting a few catches from Hines while they're driving down the field in their hurry up offense. You're maybe getting him for some third and fourth quarter full possessions if they're down. I could definitely see that happening. And they have used Taylor more in the passing game this year, but they still have given Hines some work. So I'm just throwing that out there as a way to get different, because it's a 2-game slate. We want to try and find ways to get different. Kendrick Bourne seems like a really good way to get different. I know Jacoby Myers makes sense. He's going to be the chalky one, but to me, he makes a ton of sense to get different. I like T.Y. Hilton to get different. These low-owned receivers I don't see as being so far behind the other guys. T.Y. Hilton's 4,200. And we haven't seen the massive games or anything out of him. And I don't think it's like some awesome play. I think Zach Pascal is going to be popular at 3,300. I could get behind. I actually do like they like Aguilar. I think they sort of revamped his career a little bit. So all of the receivers I've been interested in, but I think Bourne might be my favorite, just on the fact that they use him in different ways. He's not going to have the monster game every week, but he does have that ceiling. And he put up 23 and 24 2 out of the last 4 games. And we've seen him with I think 4 games over 20 this year, or 3 games over 20 this year. This could be one of those spots if he's that lowest owned receiver here. I do like Pittman on the other side. It's chalk. If I'm not going to play the chalky running backs and get different there, I can play Pittman and Renfro and not have to worry about getting too popular at receiver. And then I could throw in either Bourne, Myers, or Aguilar, depending on how chalky the rest of my lineup was. That's sort of my general strategy of what I'm going to do. And the tight end, I do think that Hunter Henry would probably be my favorite option on the slate. I think that obviously both Cleveland guys are interesting, and then there's Moreau, but I do like both of the tight ends for. I'm sorry, I like the Hunter Henry tight end option in this game, and I really like the Patriots defense as a lower owned option off of Vegas. So that's where my whole interest lies. Is there anybody I didn't touch on?
Well, yeah, well, you know what, if we're gonna be on brand here, I literally was about to say that I like the Indianapolis defense as a pivot off of the higher owned Vegas. I definitely I think the Vegas defense is going to be 60% owned.
I agree.
So considering how random defenses are, I think it's a fade to play literally any of the other defenses. What's wrong with Cleveland's defense? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think all three of the defenses except for Vegas are better plays than the Vegas defense. Given, I really think that's the case.
Mm-hmm. Even though you hate Mullins.
What?
But they're gonna. Yeah. Even though you hate Mullins.
Well, no. Okay. So you have Mullins. You got Nick Chubb, and what are they gonna do? They're really gonna just say, okay, Nick Mullins drop back and throw it 40 times? I mean, they're gonna play conservative.
They're gonna play conservative, and they're gonna throw the ball to the tight ends and to quick little out routes. Don't try. You know, the big receivers aren't going to be there. It would be a spot where Jarvis Landry would be a must play if he was available.
Let me ask you some other questions. Is it like a small enough slate to do any funny business, like the Ernest Johnson, like other?
Well, I did. I gave the funny business. I think the funny business to me is Naheem Hines. The funny business is Brandon Bolden. Maybe you could argue for Ernest Johnson. I find it a little bit thinner because it's not like he's like a pass catching back exactly either. I mean, he can. I mean, he is, but he also has played the regular plug-in play role. I don't think he's going to get like the same role that you had with Kareem Hunt. He did have the 7 catch game a while back, Ernest Johnson, but that was when they didn't have Chubb or Hunt, obviously. But I think that makes a little bit of sense. I would personally slant more towards Hines, Stevenson, Bolden, that kind of a thing. And then if Damian Harris is out, Stevenson becomes chalky. Then Brandon Bolden becomes much more viable.
He is out, by the way.
Harris is out?
That's a half hour ago. He has been downgraded to out. Yeah.
I totally missed that piece of news. So that is
you missed it because they posted as we started.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing then. So I really like Stevenson and Bolden then. I think Bolden now becomes the guy who I want to do the most funny business with because there could be, and especially if it's into your narrative of New England winning. Let's say it's Indy winning. Let's say Indy does win. Who do you think is going to be out there when they're down by 2 scores in the third and the fourth at the end of the half? It's going to be Bolden because they're going to be looking for the little dump offs. That's what happens. Well, Bolden's supposed to play, right? We don't have anything against Bolden.
Well, he's questionable. He's limited. He has a hamstring. Yeah, he's got everything.
I need to update my projections apparently because I didn't have any of that. But if he's
not out, he's not out. It says he's questionable. I mean,
yeah. I'm telling you though. So those are. So then he shoots up to be the weirdness that I would want to get some exposure to. And then at tight end, at wide receiver. Well, I like the Moreau thing at tight end because I don't think anybody's going to play him. But I think the Kendrick Bourne, T.Y. Hilton, Zay Jones you mentioned as an interesting one, Deshaun Jackson, interesting one, Brian Edwards, all these guys, all the Raiders, other guys make some sense. But there's just enough of them to where it's like, do we need to do any of them? But that's why they're also going to be low owned. So
I think you do. So I like the Deshaun Jackson idea. And here's a guy I got from you. I got one more for you. On the New England side, N'Keal Harry. Let me see what he's done. Nah, he hasn't played the last 2 games. I forget it. Okay.
I mean, this guy was a first-round pick that was taken over a lot of superstar receivers. So I'm sure they wish they could have that one back. But
how do you like this line in week 13? Nothing except for one fumble.
What? Oh, that was his line?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he
one
returned
fumble
a punt
minus 1 point. Must have returned a punt and fumbled it. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like the old days with baseball. I used to lose points for like strikeouts or stolen bases. And
really?
I remember, there was like a 14 inning game, and I had Manny Machado, and he hit like a 2-run double in the first inning, and got caught stealing twice and struck out 6 times in the game. And it was like he ended up losing points after a double and 2 RBIs in the first inning. Isn't that crazy?
You mentioned Jarvis Landry. You know that he's in protocols.
Yeah. That's why I said it. I said if he was in, he would be the ideal guy. But all their other receivers are sort of like they're not really possession guys. So it's hard to know because you want the possession safety receivers, which are going to be the tight ends.
He might be in though. He has it's unclear, you know.
Yeah, if he's in, I'm playing him. I'll tell you that right now.
You could go back to what's his name, dude. You get Njoku is 2,800.
I know, and Bryant is only 25. Like, I mean, they both make sense.
What is he? And he is, Brian is questionable, bouncing back from a high ankle sprain, but he practiced Thursday.
They're going to play everybody they can who's healthy.
Let me see Hooper. Hooper was placed in reserve COVID Tuesday. Well, he was in reserve. I don't know what the new rules are going to let him try to do. I got to figure out what is going on with these new rules. I got to see.
They keep changing it. They I don't know. It seems like they change it every day to me. But anyway, all right. Well, good luck to everybody on the Saturday slate. On the Sunday slate, we'll be with you at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And reminder, if you guys are watching this on Friday, I'll be around at 6 Eastern for live for NBA. So, Sheets, good job. And for true DFSers, let's make some money this weekend. Somebody win $1 million. Good luck.
All right, Bobby, I'll let you know.